With the Republican budget bill hanging in the balance, former darling of the GOP Elon Musk has thrown yet another wrench in the Republicans' plans. He took to Twitter just now, writing, "If this insane spending bill passes, the America Party will be formed the next day. Our country needs an alternative to the Democrat-Republican uniparty so that the people actually have a voice." Now, I know that Elon frames this as the uniparty, probably to make himself feel independent and like a free thinker, but the bill has literally zero Democratic support. In other words, this is only an attack on Republicans because Republicans are the only ones supporting this bill, which means that now Republicans have to decide which master to serve. Trump, who will use his bully pulpit to attack anybody who defies him, like he just did against Tom Tillis, literally leading to Tillis's announcement that he wouldn't seek re-election, or Elon Musk, who will use his wallet and his endless funds to attack anybody who doesn't defy Trump. Either way, not a great time to be a member of a party that is wholly owned by the rich and powerful. Now, I would say the third option would be a party that's responsive not to Trump, not to Elon, but to the people, but we all know that's never going to happen. Now, a few thoughts here. First of all, it is the ultimate irony that Elon is out here complaining about the very party that he himself installed in power. Dude spent over $250 million ensuring that Trump and Republicans took over in November. So if he suddenly got all these issues with how the governing party is comporting itself, then he should probably take a long look in the mirror. I mean, it's not like this is even some surprise. Republicans have cosplayed as fiscal conservatives for years, all the while completely and consistently blowing up the deficit to heap tax cuts onto themselves. 25% of all the current US debt was accrued during just one term, Trump's first term. These people aren't fiscal conservatives any more than I'm a theocrat. And by the way, Elon himself is no fiscal conservative either. He had full control of government with Doge, full range of the US government. And instead of going after the principal purveyor of waste, fraud, and abuse, which by the way would be the Pentagon, an agency that's failed 7 straight audits, he went after USAID, which accounts for all of 0.5% of the budget, but which was investigating him and Starlink. He went after the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, the CFPB, which is actually a net positive for American consumers who've been defrauded by banks, but which would have had oversight into him and his companies. He went after the Department of Labor, the National Labor Relations Board, the EPA, all agencies that had oversight or regulatory authority of him and his companies. In other words, he had the perfect opportunity to actually eliminate waste, fraud, and abuse, and instead squandered that opportunity helping himself and his bottom line. He's not some champion for fiscal conservatism. He's a greedy kleptocrat who looked out for literally one person when he had free reign of government. So it's pretty rich that he's once again presenting himself as this white knight when he's exactly the kind of self-dealing fraud that he pretended to want to rein in the first place. Which makes his tweets ring especially hollow like this one. Every member of Congress who campaigned on reducing government spending and then immediately voted for the biggest debt increase in history should hang their head in shame, and they will lose their primary next year if it's the last thing I do on this earth. So again, this would probably hit harder if Elon himself actually had any cred to back up his big talk, but frankly, that's of little importance right now because even if Elon himself is a fraud, which he is, the reality is that he thinks he's some champion for fiscal responsibility and has now launched a vendetta against anybody who votes for this bill. So this is an instance where, if you're a Democrat, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. If Elon wants to launch a campaign funding challenges to everybody on the right who votes for this bill, which frankly will be almost everyone, then so be it. He's got my blessing. My only message for anyone in the pro-democracy coalition out there is to remember that you gain power only one way, by getting more votes than the other side. So if they want to splinter the Republican Party into 2 parties, the Republicans and the America Party, let them. Don't be lured in by Elon's promises of some centrist grand party. Elon is not a centrist. He's a far-right technocrat whose sole goal in life is to make himself richer. He doesn't want some big center party. He wants to be the most powerful person on earth. He showed us that with how he comported himself with Doge. So don't be fooled by his rhetoric because we've been here before. In other words, if you're part of the pro-democracy coalition, now is not the time to screw around and splinter off. Take the opportunity, vote as one block, gain power, and exercise that power. Meaning, pass laws to combat climate change for good, to protect reproductive rights for good, to expand healthcare for good, to bolster unions to combat gun violence. And look, I want to be clear that I understand the allure of a new party. But it's worth remembering here that A, Elon is a bad actor and more power or influence in his hands will be as bad as Trump, And B, no political party is perfect, nor will it be. But it's not supposed to be. Our parties are nothing more than vehicles for power, and the right understands that. Trump understands that. Elon understands that. Republicans understand that. But Democrats too often don't. We impose purity tests and demand perfection and complete 100% alignment, and the truth is that we have to get over this idea that anything short of perfection is a reason to abandon the party. Because the party, right now, as it stands, is the only vehicle we have to defeat the right, imperfect though it may be. And that's not to say that we can't demand better representatives and senators in the Democratic Party, because we should, and in fact, we must. But the reality is that this is the only viable option we have to defeat Trumpism and authoritarianism and Elon Muskism as well. All of which is a point that I explained with David Pakman today.
We're not in this to find our spiritual leader. We're not in this to find our significant other. We are not looking for perfect. Our politicians are vehicles to get us the closest to where we want to be. And we inherently have to be able to reach out to people that don't just satisfy the purity test that we've decided to impose, because it has to be inclusive, not exclusive. We lost the popular vote. We lost the electoral vote. And so our only job here is to be able to find people who are not already on board and bring them into the process. That's it. Like, that's what politics is. If you want perfect, go, find a partner, and that's where you'll find your perfection. Find a spiritual leader, and that's where you'll find your perspective. But that's not what politics is right now. Politics is finding people who are vehicles to get us into power so that we could do the most with what little time we have. And we can't be imposing purity tests. We can't be excluding people from the party who don't align perfectly with every single worldview that we have. We have to be willing to compromise, because, look, I would rather have somebody in office that I agree with 60 to 75% of the time, because the alternative to that is going to be somebody that I agree with 5 to 10% of the time. And so it just has to be a matter of common sense here. And I do hope that there's some sense, because I know that the infighting is going to occur once we get into a position where the 2028 primaries start to roll around, and we see the familiar infighting, and I just hope that people have a sense of what it is that we're doing here and what politics at its core is, because it's not about finding perfection, and we can't let perfect be the enemy of good. It is about finding somebody who's going to beat the person on the Republican side so that we can get into power, so that we can use what limited time we have in power to combat climate change and expand access to healthcare and stop the proliferation of guns in our schools and make sure that women have access to reproductive care and whatever it may be.
So if Elon wants to fracture the GOP, we should applaud it. And frankly, we should also take it with a grain of salt, because Elon lies almost as much as Trump does. But those who value democracy should not be lured in by snake oil salesmen. Make the Democratic Party stronger, make it more nimble, make it more responsive, while all the while remembering that this is our best and only bulwark against the far right that has taken hold of half the country. We survive by not just staying together, but by building that coalition. And if we do that while they splinter, then that's all the better for those of us who are actually fighting to preserve democracy. Before you go, if you enjoyed this content and you want to see more and support independent media, please subscribe to this channel. The subscribe button will be right here on the screen. But second, the reality is that we are now in a political environment where this administration can lean on any of the social media platforms to suppress certain voices if they don't like critical coverage. That means my longevity here is in the hands of a few tech billionaires who are already making it clear that they are willing to cater to this administration. To that end, signing up for my newsletter is a way for me to reach you directly if that ever becomes necessary. I'll put the link right here on the screen as well, so please sign up. It's free, but there's also an option to do a paid subscription if you'd like to support me and my team. I really appreciate it. Thanks so much for watching.